Welcome everyone to the Build Your Own Chat GPT workshop. In today's workshop, we're going to cover how we can combine some of the Azure technologies, OpenAI within Azure, and some of the open source technologies out there working with LLMs, combined to actually build our own Chat GPT, basically our own Chat GPT experience, the product, how it works. And we're going to do that both explain the concepts as well as the code right after this quick intro. All right. Well, I hope I didn't lose anyone in that intro video. One question I see in the chat, is it started yet? Is this still happening? I think the answer is yes. Great. I asked in the audience where you're joining from, and have you used OpenAI, the OpenAI API before? And I have. It's not just me going to do this workshop. I have a special guest to join us as well. Welcome, Yashoda, to your Reactor debut.
Hello, thank you. Hi, everyone.
I'll ask you the question. Have you used the OpenAI API, and where are you joining from?
Yeah, hi, everyone. My name is Yashoda Singh, so I'm joining from Norway. So I'm based in Norway. And yes, I have used Azure OpenAI services.
Yo, nice. So let's see who we got here as well. So we got we got Pep Talk from Toronto. We got Switzerland, Nepal. I like that. Great, good little Redmond. Nice, good old headquarters. I don't know if you are Andrew, a Microsoft employee or not, but if you are, hello, colleagues. Toronto, not yet. So if you haven't used it yet, that's good to know. It's got some European love as well as Rotterdam and Poland. Cool. Well, we have a lot to cover today, but Yashoda, I'll put this quick little slide up here. This is our faces in case you can't see us and the other fellows. We're going to talk about building your own Chat GPT as promised, but you are a solution specialist in data and AI. What in 150 words or less, because we got a lot to cover. What would you say you do around here? What's the solution specialist in data and AI?
Okay, so in a nutshell, what I do is I work with enterprise customers in Norway. Those are like big customers. And my job basically is to help my customers to find data analytics and AI projects and everything from planning to production. So I'm in the loop. So I'm there. I act as extended part of the team. So that's my everyday life. I talk data, I do analytics, I talk AI all day long. So that's my job.
Great. Talking AI is a good skill to have on a AI workshop such as this. So I think a lot of people here will appreciate that. Cool. If this is your first time seeing me on the Reactor channel, I always do this as a nice courtesy to the audience because I, like you, watch many of these streams, and sometimes I see links or things we talk about, and hey, I really want to find what they're looking at. I zoom in on the browser or whatnot, and then I'm trying to manage my tabs. So, and not to have any stress for you, viewing audience, I put all of the links or the resources that we're going to share in this one little page, and I will put this if I can get into the chat window. Sorry, I'll put this in the chat too, because one of the questions we always get, Yashoda, this is your first time here, but we always get one question, and it's this one: will this be recorded and uploaded? And the answer is, what would you guess, Yashoda? What would you guess?
Yes.
Yes, the answer is yes. So it's going to be on this link. So this is a YouTube stream, and it basically, I think it takes like maybe 3 minutes after compressing to go live again for on demand on YouTube on our Reactor channel. So that link will also be on there, as well as our GitHub repo and things like that we will be talking about today. So now that I've kind of warmed you up and hopefully I haven't lost anyone, we're going to do three things today. Like I said, we're going to do a lot of things in these three things, but we're going to do three main things. First, we're going to cover, your show is going to cover some of the basic concepts of working with OpenAI and the OpenAI service within Azure. But going to cover some of the basic concepts because obviously when we ask the audience, some of this is going to be brand new to you, whether it's the Azure kind of jargon, abbreviations, LLMs, API, all these things. So we're going to try to explain that for most people in the audience that haven't seen that before. Then we're going to do some architecture just to show you what the app that we will be looking at the code in. So we're going to look at that, and then we're going to see a demo, it actually working, right? Your own ChatGPT. And then lastly, we're going to explore the code. So I'm going to take full credit, or no credit at all, that I did not build this demo myself. So we're going to look at some great code made by some great Microsoft engineers. I'm not as good as a developer as they are, but we're going to explore the code, show you both like how this is going to be working with the Azure OpenAI service, but also some great principles. So if you're like actually building a product on OpenAI API, or just even generally any LLM, around prompting and how they kind of integrate in that into the product. So that's what we're going to do, these three things. So Yashoda, it's this is my dad joke. I make one dad joke. It's Yashoda time. Your time. Your time.
Thanks. Great intro, Coden. Okay, let's start, right? Yeah. Let's start sharing by my screen. Since I work with customers, so I'm so used to work on PowerPoint slides. So do you see my slides?
We can see them, and feel free everyone to ask questions while we go.
Yeah,
Because
please, just please
I'll be watching the chat.
do so. Great. Let's start. I gave you my introductions. Like I mentioned, I talk about data analytics and AI day out and day in here in Norway. And also I am heavily engaged within the data analytics and AI community here in Norway as well. So I pretty much do data in analytics and AI in my free time and in my work time. So I'm really, I would say, have a big passion, and I'm obsessed with what I'm doing. So that being said, I just want to highlight some point here. We see in this industry that AI revolution, and AI revolution is something we've been hearing for a while now, right? But what sets this year apart? So what does actually AI revolution in 2023 looks like? What has happened? So as we all know that obviously data is the foundation of AI, and AI is becoming the foundations of the softwares and also the applications we use and we are developing, and they are becoming the foundation, right? And moreover, those those AI models that are powering our applications and softwares are becoming multimodal. So what I meant by that is, like, we used to have this one uni model that was very good at reading and writing, and we had one model that was more for seeing and recognizing images, cats and dogs and etc. And there was another model that was for speech. You would hear and then turn it into text. But now everything has come together into one multimodal, and isn't it fantastic? And I mean, that's the present AI we are living in, you are living in. So that's where we are. And I also want to highlight the ChatGPT phenomenon. We all know that ChatGPT got 100 million users just in 2 months, and that's like I would say, that made a history, right? An entire say it made, like, in a whole the history of all the technology and tools we've been developing, and this is the only tool that got adopted so fast in so short time. So, and we can say that this year we have gone from scarcity AI to more of a abundance AI. So like I said, I talk about AI all the time. And when I look into the industry or the market, what it used to be just a couple of months ago, not even very long ago, is that these AI projects were seen more of like, the North Star project, but and also mostly experimental projects. But things are changing rapidly. And now many of our customers or organizations, they are actually what they're asking me is like, hey, how can we create our own ChatGPT like instance that doesn't give you answers on the based of the web data, but from our own data, so aka build your own ChatGPT. And that is also the main reason I'm here to talk to you. And also I also want to actually invite you to start having this conversation around AI today, and have a lot of conversation around AI today. Because like I also want to highlight here, the experience from the field is that starting an AI project a few months ago versus starting AI project today or tomorrow can make a significant difference, you know. And being early adopter of AI technology provides an advantage in terms of obviously understanding AI, also known as AI literacy, AI fluency, you name it. And when I say AI literacy and AI fluence, I don't mean that you should start coding. What I meant is like where you are using for what you are using, right? Have that basic concept in mind. And also these tools, these AI infused tools, I mean, if you put I mean, if you start adopting to them, and this gives you the first mover advantages, so you will actually know how it is to use them. So I invite you to, I mean, start having the conversation, right? So that's where we will head our head. And the another aspect here is obviously talking about tools. Now I'm gonna refer AI models as a tool, or AI as a tool. And if you see in the history of mankind, we've been discovering different tools. You know, if you see from our early primitive time, we used bones to hunt or to cut something, right? Those were our tools, and pretty powerful tools, right? And if you also see in this hierarchy of the food chain, humans, we are on the top. And throughout the history, so we human have been creating various types of tools, and then after technologies, and to serve ourselves and to serve the humanity. In the same way, AI will do so. And now I just don't want to say just human, but also the planet. It's equally important. You're our common home, right? And so if you have, and you have this OpenAI, a capped profit AI resource organization, and we have Microsoft, who has very strong principle of serving humanity and
Yashoda,
individual. Yeah.
I think what we could do, because I see some questions already about like the
Mm-hmm.
components and cost and things like that. Maybe since I think everyone kind of knows some bits about the OpenAI stuff already, we can go
Mm-hmm.
into a bit about how we are integrating that with Azure first,
Mm-hmm.
and the architecture, and then we'll go into the demo too. But I think that'll be the place
Okay,
to
let
jump
me.
to.
Okay, great. Then let me skip this. But basically, what I wanted to highlight here is like, you know, you have this OpenAI and Microsoft coming together. And the reason we called Azure OpenAI, not just OpenAI, because these, if you see these models, these are available in Azure. So that's why we call it Azure OpenAI. So that's the story of of until now. So
Yeah,
just to
Jawad
highlight.
had a good point. It was
Mm,
using your own data, so it's safe in terms of GDPR. Maybe that's something. Again, what you're talking about, putting in Azure on this slide too, I think is great about the data side.
definitely. Yeah. And also, if you see in this slide is quite. I mean, this slide, it represents, you know, our whole stack of Azure AI services. If you see from the bottom, you have your machine learning, you know, your Azure machine learning, and here it's your cloud platform to develop your your machine learning models, and you can actually also bring your models here and customize them. And then you have your customizable AI models, and this is where our Azure OpenAI, all the models sits. And these are pre-trained out of the box models, right? This is where the whole stack comes in. And then on the top, if you see whole on the top applications, like I mentioned, our softwares and applications are powered by AI. So these, and in Microsoft, we're actually powering our applications and services with the existing Azure AI services we have. And it's pretty exciting. So I want you to stay alert, and there are a lot of exciting things coming in the way. So that's being said, okay, let's go to the topic of the day, and that is to how to create your own ChatGPT like instance, right? And there are two ways to do this. And the first one is to inject the data into the prompt. Like here I have done, I have just copied the pasted and then copy pasted the whole document into the prompt. And then I'm told it answer only from the following information. But then I ran into error. So what is happening here? The reason I ran into error is this has a token limitation. And what I meant by that is, like, for example, your one page of your document has around 3,000 to 3,600 tokens. And let's say if you have enterprise data and your enterprise data is not just one page, right? You have thousands of pages and it's big data. So you cannot, practically not put everything as a prompt. So this is not a solution to go. So, and regarding the basic concepts, I mentioned tokens. So I want to just put this terminology, clarify the terminology around tokens, is that tokens are the building blocks of a sentence, just like words. So a word can be a token, but a token cannot be a word. For example, if you see in this sentence, you see I have highlighted form recognizer. So recognizer gets into two tokens. So, and the GPT models has 4,000 token limitations. So you cannot put more than 4,000 limitation in one prompt. Because of this reason, so we will have to apply the second alternative, and that is to keep your data in an external database. For that reason, we are leveraging Azure Cognitive Service. And if you see this entire portfolio of our Azure AI services, and with Azure Cognitive Search is one of our service, right? And to explain it in a very simpler terms, what Azure Cognitive Search is, imagine like you are a new hire and want to have some information on your employee benefits. So you could try reading through all the documents you have one by one. That would take time. Who has the time? I do not. So instead, what you can do is you can actually search for the document, just like you do in Google or Bing, and then you will have the relevant documents available. And that is the exact the concept we are, or not the concept. That's the exact service we're going to use here. And how is that done in the background? Is that so you get this search experience of your data, of your HR data, the kind of questions you're asking. So in this case, the people making the search engine in the back, they need to make sure that all the information that is organized and easy to search. So what I meant by that is how is it done? So you have, like I said, you have your big document, right? And because of token limitations, you cannot send everything. If you have 1,000 pages of the document, you cannot send it there. So what you have to do is you have to divide it into different chunks. And here in this example, I have divided the whole document into two different chunks, and that is 1,000 and 1,000. And I have 100 of overlapping. So why do I have overlapping? Because I want the story to flow. Because large language models, they need to know the context. So because the story need to flow, that's why we have the overlapping of the 100, right? And I want to add here that this is how it looks in the Azure. But this is, I'll show you in this architect. I will try to explain more into the architect here. But one point here is to notice is, of course, you'll have a token limitations. That is, you cannot just put everything in the AI models or Azure OpenAI models. But also you cannot put very short either, because then it will lose the context. So large language models they don't take really, really big chunks of documents, not even, for it to understand the context. It is also not relevant to have it very short. So you need to be very mindful on how you chunk your document. And in our example, in our demo, so we have, so our engineers have chunked it into 1,000 tokens. So now this is the architect. I will just run one by one, just to try to make you understand in a very simpler way. And if there are any questions, just
we had a few questions.
Yeah, sure.
There's one. I'm gonna give you like the I already know the answer kind of question, but so Abigar7 says, how can I use ChatGPT or any LLM model? I always like make that one word when it's not, or Copilot with service without compromising the data privacy or exposing company or customer data.
I'm coming there. Great, good questions. I will explain that in this slide actually. Great.
Yeah, not to sidetrack you too much, but there was a lot of questions around pricing. So I don't know, maybe after this we could like put in a link around pricing. I normally don't get these many questions about pricing, but everyone wants to know.
Definitely.
We'll try to address that later on too. Cool.
Let's do that. Pricing is important. Okay, we'll do that for sure. Okay, good question. Thank you for asking that question. So let's start. So in our example, we have HR document, right? And those as well HR document come from this imaginary company called Contoso Electronics. And those documents sit nicely with, that it has a PDF or text format. And those documents come in different files and one document has 100 of pages. So it's a pretty big data, right? And so what we are doing here is we are taking the data, and then the next step here is before we put the data into chunks and put it into Azure Cognitive Search, we are actually extracting that data from the PDF or the text format into the text using AI. And there we are leveraging our service called Azure Form Recognizer. And it's a great product. It easily extract the text from multiple pages, and it's a great product. So that's what we are leveraging here. And you as a data scientist or data engineering, you can take this stage as your data engineering stage in a whole machine learning, I would say, the stages. And then so next step here is to store your data to your choice of storage. So to begin with, we have loaded these files you see here into our choice of storage, and that is Blob. So Azure Blob is a storage, and it's a it's a highly scalable, it's a secure cloud-based storage, and it is provided by Microsoft Azure, and it is cost-effective solution for storing unstructured data such as text, binary data, images, videos, audio files, or you name it. And then now you have your data stored into indexes in your Azure Cognitive Search. Like I mentioned, you chunk your data, and that you do in your Azure Cognitive Search. Now let's go to the other end, and that is your, let's say, your app user experience, and that is your app, that is your ChatGPT. So you as a new employee in an organization wants to know what are your benefits. So you ask what are my benefits? You ask your ChatGPT the questions. So what happens here is your ChatGPT takes the question to the Azure Cognitive Search, right? And here it searches, it goes and crawls through I don't know if I mentioned that these chunks are stored in indexes. So they are given the IDs. So what happens is, like, when you ask, what are my benefits? It goes there, and then it finds all the documents, all the chunks related to your search. So it goes and finds, and then gives you the most relevant documents, right? Or chunks. And once you have them, so it goes back, then that goes to your Azure OpenAI models and as a prompt. And then you get your answer. So this is what happens in a nutshell. And to get back to the questions of your data security and privacy. So I want to mention here is that, let's say you send your data as a prompt to Azure OpenAI models. So is your data processed by Azure OpenAI sent to OpenAI? And the answer is no. Microsoft hosts the Azure OpenAI models within our Azure infrastructure, and all customer data sent to Azure OpenAI remains within Azure OpenAI service. So that's why it was very important for me to show you this, like a whole stack of Azure OpenAI services and Azure AI services. So, and the second question here is your data used to train the OpenAI models? And answer is no. We do not use customer data to train or retrain or improve the models in Azure OpenAI service. We do not. So, and that is why also it is important to keep in mind that we always say, the advantage of using Azure as your cloud's provider. You have your security, your privacy, everything in check. I hope that answers your question. And so before I actually jump into the ChatGPT and the demo, I want to highlight one key aspect here. That is to treat these models, these are extremely powerful models, and treat these models with respect. So here if you can see in the screen, I just wanted to prove my point here, right? So I took a chunk of, since the Korea is Swedish, I'm here in Norway, so we are allowed to talk about Danish here. So an example I have written, like, the Dan is the person, or the Danish is the person who will talk to you even before drinking, and the Norwegian is the person who will talk to you after drinking. We have this very stereotypical labeling of Norwegian, that Norwegians are very introvert, and yeah. So and then I ask and then I give the instruction that, like, do not just and then I asked the question, who is more approachable? And I told it, like, do not answer the questions only from the below sentiments, because I already give the sentiments. I already give the sentiments to the model, right? And obviously the model says, oh yeah, the Danish are more friendlier or approachable. And then what I did in the second example is I just flip it. So instead of the Dan is person who will talk to you even before drinking, I put Norwegian. And then down below, if instead of Norwegian, I put Dan. I just switched the Danish and Norwegian. And then I asked who is more approachable. And now my model says, obviously the Norwegians are more approachable. So here and the whole essence of me trying to show you here is that your AI models are designed to learn. I mean, we all know that AI learns from the data, right? But now with these large language models, just this data, but also it learns from your instructions, how you give the instructions, what kind of personality you give. Do you make it polite? Do you make it assertive? What do you do? And everything is possible by giving the instruction in a system message in a language. And that is I would say, the aha moment. And also I have want to also highlight that a lot of my colleagues use AI as a baby. And when you say a baby, and baby is always ready to be taught and nurtured, right? People use different analogies, so I haven't found my one yet, and if I do, I'll share one day. But that was me redoing the slides work. But then I actually want to maybe show the demo.
Yeah, let's
or
do
if
it.
you don't have any questions.
We have tons of questions.
We do. Do you want to take questions first?
No, you can go ahead and do your switch. I did ask the audience if the Norwegians were more approachable, so I'm waiting for clear answers on that.
Oh, you are.
Let's see. Yeah, so one question Martin asked, and I answered it in the chat, but does the query retain context? And I'm going to show you in the code. So the answer is yes, if I want to answer it directly, but I'm going to show you in the code how we retain context for when we talk about the chat module. But that's a great question. Let's see. Also, does enterprise train model integrate with the web, specifically Bing Copilot? So I guess what they're asking Yusuf here is, like, I guess if you do what we're going to show you, is it also integrating with the web, or how do we, like, I guess, cut off the web if we don't if we want it or we don't want it?
It really depends on what you want and what you require. It's I don't know if I have a specific answer, or I don't know if I get that, but I think it really depends on the use case, I guess.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think that's it. Like for the data and things like that. There was a question as well, like HIPAA compliancy. Where are we? I don't know where that was, but do you know anything about HIPAA compliancy on this? Here we go. Vinay asks, HIPAA is like do you know HIPAA? Maybe I'm also assuming you know HIPAA. Right? It's like a regulation for healthcare information. I don't know if we can answer that one for you, Vinay, at the moment, but I'll put that in the links as well when we do find that.
Please do so. Yeah.
Cool. Are you ready to show the demo then? And we'll get to the code.
Yes, I am. Please let's me try to share my screen.
Jay here. Jay's looking forward to the session. He just joined. Jay, we've been 30 minutes on already, Jay. Come on now.
That's great. Okay, let me try to share the screen. So there you go. You can see my screen now, right? Yeah, can you see my screen now?
Yeah. So let's see what we've been talking about. I guess why don't you just show the demo itself, like the front end actual demo, and then I will, because I think we touched on some of the services, but this is what Azure looks like, everyone. And then I can go into the code a bit now, because we already hit the half hour.
Yeah, I'll just take some minutes now. So
Yeah.
most of the talking is done. So I just actually want to show you how it looks in practice. So everyone, Corey, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Yeah, you're there. I thought we lost you. You're there.
Oh, no.
Okay, great. So if you are new to Azure, so this is how your Azure portal looks like.
If you could, you could do a quick zoom, maybe, because some people are saying,
how is it?
Oh yeah, there you go. That's perfect.
Great. So the entire architect, I was talking for a few minutes. So all these services, I was telling like, oh, I'm gonna leverage the power of cognitive search, form recognizer, and blob storage, everything. So this is where I have deployed, right? So this is your storage account. This is where my data is sitting, and this is your for computing, and this is for your indexing, and this is where your OpenAI models comes from, and this is your form recognizer, and this is your app service. And with this, I actually want to show you how the chunking of the data looks like. I'm a very visual person. Maybe you are too. So maybe you would want to see how actually it looks like. So here, all the documents I explained from the HR, so they are chunked or they're indexed in 604 different chunks. And if I give a quick search, so this is how it looks. This is how actually the reason we have token limitation, and the reason we are taking the second route and taking this as a solution. And this is how the data is chunked and stored in your Azure Cognitive Search. And if you ask me a question, okay, why can you not use Azure Cognitive Search or service as a storage? No, you cannot, because here the data sits in inverted index, so you cannot use that as your storage account. So that is it. And maybe you want to see I don't know if you have access to Azure OpenAI services. We will send you the applications to apply, and so once you fill out your application, so you want to have access to it, so you will actually can go and try to play around with different models. So I just want to show you how it looks like, right? If you don't have access yet. Give me seconds. I need to change my directory. I hope Corey is joining back. Okay, so this is your.
I'm always here. I'm giving you the shine of just having your face. They don't need to see me looking around my screen. So
very
I'm always here.
Of you. Very kind of you. I actually got panic. So very kind of you, Corey. Okay. Anyways, once you have access to your Azure OpenAI services, and here you can deploy the model of your choices, and here you can try to you have your OpenAI ChatGPT web-based, and this is similar here. You can actually try to give some different examples and try to play around here, and to start with, obviously. And yeah, so I just wanted to show you this, but the main point here is your ChatGPT. So now I mentioned that we are building your chat GPT on the base of the HR data that I described. And this is how it looks in the front end. Obviously, Corey will describe you the codes and what's happening in the behind. But then, yeah. So just to give you an example on how you can actually talk to your data, I have some ready-made prompts. Let's start with one. There's one ready-made prompt, and as a new employee, so kind of information you would want from your HR document is what kind of services or what kind of benefits you have. So here you can see that there are two kind of plans, health plans, and that is Northwind Plus, and there's another one is a standard, right? And then here you get the answers. Okay, so what is included? So this is included in your plan. So if I want to know more, so I can actually ask more questions, and then I can say, can you, let's add please as well. Can you please give me the list of both plans side by side? So then I send you, and let's give some seconds. Then here you have, so you have the what's included in the North Health Plus and what is in standard. And I want to go to the next level. I actually want to tell it to give me the answers in my language, Norwegian. So I want to say, can you give me the list again in Norwegian? So then let's see. Yeah, there you go. In this, and then you have your answers in Norwegian language, right? And what we have done, or what our engineering team has done in the back, is they have just written a small sentence saying that just if you have any questions in different language, answer in that question. So answer in that language. So just with small sentence, this is how how powerful these models are. And also one thing I actually want to highlight here is if you go to the thought process, what is actually happening. I explained the whole architect, what's happening. And there, for example, if you see here, the documents it is given me, these answers are from these documents. So basically what is happening is like, this is your system message. You are telling your system to what to do, right? And also you're telling it to answer only from the fact listed from these documents. Just don't say whatever. You have to give the order or instruction on what to do. And then you have these chunks provided by your Azure Cognitive Search, and then you have your question here, and then you have your answer here. So basically, once you have your question, it goes up and then finds the answers from the chunk and then gives you answer like a magic. So that is what actually happening in the background. So Kore, are there any questions?
Yes, there's always questions. It's a
lot of questions, right? Yeah.
Maybe before I go on, here's a good question. I really like when people start like giving them their own use cases, because I can see the gears churning. Can you train an instance with your own Slack messages to answer following your style? So I guess it'd be in the style of Paul here, Paul, on like, yeah, giving this a way to like train the answers on how he writes it.
There is another GitHub repo that is more, this open source based. You mentioned that maybe you want to take that in another session. And there you actually, if you have, I don't know, if I find the GitHub repo, I'll share the link, and there you can actually see how you can implement the open source services. So if you don't have access to Azure, so that is also possible.
Lovely. That's a great answer. And yeah, like I said, there might be a sequel to this little session. So maybe we'll take down that use case. Cool. Well, speaking of open source, this is a great segue into the actual code. And that's what we're going to do now. I'm going to give, so the app, there's a front end and there's a back end. I'm going to give the audience, what would you like to see? The back end first or the front end? And backend is written in Python. I know there's at least one Python developer on the chat on the stream. So let me know. I have my opinions, but let's see. What would you like to start with? We'll give it some time. But okay, perfect. I knew somebody would give me the answer that I wanted. Backend. Yes, we're going to start with the backend. So there's a couple of things that I think are really important when you're looking at this code. And the other one, like I said, big caveat, I did not write this code. A much better engineer or developer did. But I'm going to give you a general sense of what was written and why it was written that way. So we have two elements, right? I said the back end. And there's a big idea here. It's about the approaches. So whenever you're prompting a model such as GPT, ChatGPT, there should be a way where you sort of design, and there's a lot of backend answers. There's a way to sort of design your prompts in a way that you want to get the different responses, and that's you'll see in the code, which I'll show you in a second. There's an approaches. There's 3 or actually 4 approaches listed, and they all have different prompt templates based on how we want the model to respond, and again showing in the front end to the user how this is actually being the answer or the result that they are looking for. And what's really cool about this, I think you showed it, maybe you did show this, I'm not sure, but there's a little like on this demo, if you build it or use it, there's a little way where we can actually change the approaches. Like we have 3 of them: retrieve, then read, retrieve, read, and read, decompose, ask. So what does that mean? So all of these are actually, I think almost all of them have like some sort of paper or something attached to that. And that's where we kind of get these sort of prompt designs, or I don't know if that's say architecture, but approaches is probably the best word. So let's look at the first one. It's read, then retrieve, then read approach. And this is like the simplest type of prompt, where it's basically saying, okay, I'm going to create a prompt, and then I want the model to return some data, essentially. So, the model gets a question or whatever you're looking for, your ear insurance or health insurance, or I forgot what your prompt was, but something like that. Yeah. It's going to tap into some knowledge base. So what we showed in the architecture as the structure there. And then we're going to present the data from the knowledge base. So it doesn't actually like give you like a direct answer per se, but it's going to give you that knowledge. So it's going to retrieve the information, present it to the user, and there will, as a human, hopefully on the other end, decide whether that's like the correct answer or finding that. One of the big things I want to highlight in the code as well is that we also talk about showing the sources. So that was something I think kind of newly implemented, as far as like, oh, we should probably show where these models are getting this information. So transparency from a Microsoft perspective, or just in general, a good practice when you're working with integrating LLMs in your product is to show the sources. And I'll show you how that looks like in the code. So if we go to our lovely backend, again, not the code I wrote, but great code. So first things, this is Python. So if you've never seen Python code before, welcome to Python. So we have generally some imports of our Azure tools, the search client, the OpenAI as well, library. But then we'll go into the actual prompt. I think that's like really where people will get the most learning from. And we have one prompt template that we kind of utilize, and that's what's going to be the template for the further prompts that the user makes the questions on. I'm not going to read the whole prompt. That would be really boring for me to like read this verbatim. But essentially, it starts out saying like, oh, we're going to be, an employee of this company, Contasso, I guess. And we're going to be an intelligent assistant for the healthcare plan. And another thing is that we have the question, so we know that that's a question is going to come in. Then we're going to also list the sources and exactly what we sort of pull into that sources, that information. So these are kind of the lines that the model detects being brought in. And then the answer, right? So in this case, we're talking about deductibles, which if you're never familiar with like US healthcare, this is a very specific example, right? But it's around cost. So then in the code, what we do, we build this as a prompt template. And then we have this, we basically store for the new prompts coming in, both the question. So this is what this queue is. And then we want to also store in the retrieve. So this is going to be the API that's going to be available for the front end later on. So that's probably the simplest type of prompt style that we have within this model. And again, it could why we have different approaches is really based on what type of answers that we want to give the user, as well as what kind of data that we're using, and what will best fit. Like for example, here we also tell the model to, if there's some tabular information, we want to present that really nicely, so it returns into an HTML table. So again, things to think about when you're building sort of open AI products, as well as just any sort of LLM out there. So that was probably the simplest one, and probably something, if you've kind of just gotten started with prompting, probably something that you've seen before. But there's a little bit more, I guess, advanced or more use case based ones. The other approach is retrieve, read, or RRR in the code. So you'll see that quite often when you go into the GitHub repo, which we will share in the links. And this is actually allows the model to get a certain question. So again, a prompt from the user. I'm saying question just for the sake. And basically, we want to point the model into different sources of data and kind of build on that prompt. So what we mean by that is, say the model gets a question, okay, what is my ear insurance or health insurance plan? What does it cover? So then we have this knowledge base, which is essentially taking in, okay, we all know where the plans are. So we have it stored in Azure or stored anywhere. That's where the first we're going to start there. And then we're going to take in consideration the employee data. So like we mentioned, I'm in Sweden, Yashoda's in Norway. Maybe these health plans are different. Norwegians are more approachable, so probably they're more healthier as well. I don't know. So maybe we have different things there, right? So then the model will say, okay, based on this employee data that we have, we know based on who's asking the question, and I'm going to show you in the code, because there's two ways that we're going to do this based on employee data. One, we could store it in like a dead CV file, which we do in this demo, but we could also connect that to our sort of Active Directory Azure and exactly know who you are, where, and know what country you are, what job you do, and know exactly what the access there. And I throw in this third one, but we could also have another third source, let's say like vendor documents. So let's say, oh, maybe you selected based on your employee, the healthcare provider, for example. And then it does all these things. So it kind of hops between these three things to get the give the actual response to the user. So this is the part of the RRR. So read what's happening, retrieve all that, read the actual data itself, and then present the prompt. So this is quite a little bit more complex, right, than the read, then retrieve, then read, where we're just expecting the user to read the data that we presented. So if we go into this file, we have a few other things. I saw a mention around LangChain. LangChain, and this is what I really like about this whole world is we're using Azure, we're using OpenAI, and we're also using open source. And LangChain is probably the best, or the one way to work with these sorts of models in a contextual way. Basically, LangChain is a LLM programming framework, if you will, and it allows us to put a lot of more context within when we build our application. So if you haven't heard about LangChain and you want to get started building sort of things, I put some links in the LangChain docs as well, because I think it's worth it. And as you can see, we're also using this for this demo. So if you look at the prompt here now, we have this template, which again is something that also we use within LangChain. So we're using basically the same one, where you're an intelligent agent. But then now we have, we're going to first take the question, and then we have this agent Scratchpad, which I think is a really cool name. And that's actually built into LangChain. And basically the Scratchpad allows the model to kind of keep its notes on its process, on its steps that it's taking, so that it knows exactly what to build upon. So like I said, in this retrieve, it's reading some information, then going to another source to get more information, and then building on it. So the model needs to sort of continue to take notes, and that's what this agent Scratchpad does. And it shows, we also store that in a variable, this thought. And when we look at the demo, it also, you can see the thought process that is shown there. And then what was specific about this approach is that we also show exactly, you have access to the following tools. In this demo, I think we, again, we have like the CSV file, but again, if we're integrating this into Azure, we have all our Azure tools, all our Azure databases, where we can store that. We can say the model go here for things like that. So that's a difference in this approach. And again, the prompt looking different, and also we're accessing, or not limiting the access, but pointing the model into where we want to find that data. So, and the next one, I don't know, maybe I wouldn't say the most complex, but again, probably the most steps involved. And if you ever seen some of these baby GPT, auto GPT type things, this is kind of some of that going on as well. And it's this read the decompose ask. So basically, it's reading that, it's going to decompose, it's going to understand what's going on, and it's going to ask another question. It's not going to ask it to the user itself, it's going to ask itself, the model, and then try to find the answer to that question. So that's, I think it's RDA in the code. So you'll see approach RDA listed as well. And so the model gets the question, right? What happens? It actually creates different sub questions based on that. And then, and I'll give you an example. So then it takes a thought, like what the thought is, or what the kind of response is for itself. It takes an action. So, oh, I'm going to look in this document, for example, and then makes a new observation. So one of the things that I did in this as a, just to play around with it was, does my plan cover ear insurance? And I don't even know what ear insurance is, but I said ear insurance, just to kind of really test that. So the thought one is like, I need to search my plan and find out if it covers ear insurance, right? So it takes an action, search my plan. And again, we know my plan because whether we integrated this into the data or we know who this user is that's making this. So this is another level. And again, we're talking about this in like enterprise perspective, like, oh, you're working with your own employees. But let's say you're a, SaaS product and you also manage data for your customers. This could also be the same thing. So we take an action, search, right, my plan, and then it's going to make an observation. It's going to take it out from the data. I didn't put all the observations, but the observation is basically showing what the data is. And then we're going to do a new thought. Okay, my plan does not mention ear insurance, so I need to look up now if ear insurance is it's covered. So then I'm going to look up ear insurance, that specific term, and then and then it finds in one of the documents something about ear and tubing. So okay, great. We can find this. I'm getting closer, right? I'm like, if you play the game of hot and cold, right? Like warmer, warmer, warmer. That's basically what the models are doing. And then lastly, it's okay, my thought process. So my plan does not cover ear insurance. And this is a very interesting use case because it clearly has some hearing insurance and it actually sees that, but the model concludes that it doesn't do that. And I thought that was really interesting because this, again, why we have different approaches, because certain use cases, right? Like maybe all of these extra thoughts and steps is, giving too much to the model to think about essentially, and maybe not drawing the right conclusion. So, hey, I know we all expect this to be magic and work the first time, but sometimes it doesn't. And going through these different approaches is really important to see how that goes there. This is called chain of thought prompting. So if you ever want to like get a prompting and you want to look this up, there's many good resources. I'll link to them as well. And this is kind of that approach. And I mentioned to you the agent Scratchpad. So looking at the code for this one, we got a little bit more things coming in from the Langchan side as well. And then we also have this approach, which we will bring when we show that to the user. Where's my prompt? So now we have this prompt. It's much, much longer. But we don't have like a specific prompt. We have this example, and we basically want to give this to the model to understand that this is kind of what we want you to be doing. Well, we have the thought, right? Listing that, the action, which I mentioned. So search, and it's going to list the specific document there, and then keep on going until you've really gotten into the finish, which is okay. Give me the answer and where you've like found it. Does that? And then again, we also still need to use the agent Scratchpad in this case. So we have the input and the agent Scratchpad, which is going to be the one, again, that allows the model to kind of keep track of what it's doing. Cool. I'll stop there. We had some questions. Something about a grandma. Great. Yeah, we should ask the grandma. And is this diagram available? I will make this available, Christian, for everyone, so that you can kind of see I use a tool, but I think I can export this pretty easily. Cool. The last one I want to talk about is this chat read and retrieve. So if you look at the demo, we actually have two different templates or different layouts. One is this ask a question, and that's what's around the three approaches I just discussed. But the other one is the chat. And there was a question around context, and this is where I'm going to answer around context as well. Because this is the chat-like experience. So this is the chat GPT, ask the model something, right? And how do we sort of work with that? But what's really important here and what we do in this code is we actually store the chat history. And you showed us, since I've had you in this whole screen this whole time, and I haven't asked you anything. You've just been sitting in there nicely watching me. Why can you? I'm going to give you a guess. Do you know why we store the chat history at all?
Do you want
I'll
me to
put you on the
answer?
spot. Yeah, I want
Do
you.
you
I
want me
want
to
you to
answer?
Yes.
Because we want to get the context.
Perfect. Right. So if you do like a question, right, and then you say, oh, like this is cover insurance, my ear insurance, and then what about my knee or something? You don't want the model to like basically go start from scratch, right? We're already talking about insurance or whatever, so we want to store this history. And then what we do is add the chat history to the prompt. So we store that in a variable and we add it to the prompt so that also gives the model the context that it needs to operate in. So what that looks like in the code is basically we have this, I don't think we talked about this, but we actually have these system messages. So this is basically giving the model the instructions or the setup that we want to be running with. So this is IAM start and then system. So we have roles, systems, and users. And basically, we have this one now where you're the assistant. Again, we're helping employees find the healthcare system. And then we are storing in follow-up questions. So if there's a case of a follow-up question from the user, we're going to inject the prompt from the actual user there. We're still showing the sources, so a good practice to do. And then lastly, the chat history. So I want to show this one because there's actually a great Python notebook. I had some authentication issues. That's nothing wrong with the code at all. That's me. But so I would love to show you this Python notebook working, but it's also a great way to show you the different steps of this chat, read, and retrieve. And you can always look at the history. You can call the variable in the Python notebook and see what's been stored there. So then we have the content for these prompts all listed there. And again, we will store the chat history. So there was a question way earlier about keeping context, and this is how we do it. And again, this is not tied to just this demo or just Azure OpenAI, but just good prompting in general. So if you don't have access yet, this is a way to you can even get started with it if you have any access to almost any LLM at the moment. All right, so that was a lot of backend. Hope all my Pythonistas were pleased. So we'll cover the front end, and again, there's not much going on. Not to say that it's not cool to code front end, but basically we have an API that we're using on the back end with Python, and we're serving that information to the front end side. And then we have this model TS, and I just want to say I want to point this out just because maybe you've never seen TypeScript before, but in TypeScript, basically we use these models. This isn't chat GPT models or AI models. These are just basically types in our TypeScript code so that we can know we create types so we can know what to expect in our code. So you see question marks, that means it's optional essentially. So, but basically building the front end is important because obviously you want a user experience. So we have these things like ask, request, which we expect that to be a string. We want to have the approaches. So what approach that we want to have, we define that in our front end code as well. And then overrides. We didn't talk about this. There is a option in the UI, basically talking about overrides. And I think to the question around like, can I have this answer in the style of me? One of the overrides that we can do, let's see, I think it's here. One of the overrides we could do is, override prompt template. Basically, we can have things like answer the question as a priority or something. And this gets added to the prompt as a pirate. Don't talk and type. That's a skill that I still have not mastered. So that's something also we want to connect into our front end. And then we have these chats. This is like the chat, and then we have one called one-shot TSX. So this is all just TypeScript under using a Vite application. So when you run this, you're also compiled with Vite. One thing I wanted to show was around these overrides. So that brings in the prompt template, the exclude categories, everything we have there, and then the semantic ranker, which I'm not sure if we talked about, but one of the things that we can do is also rank the responses. And semantic rankers are basically using another AI model too that just present things, and this is the first thing we get, the second getting the third thing grid, but semantically rank them, and that's using the Azure service as well. So another nice little tip towards like how this is all working together, which is quite cool. But that's basically it. I wanted to just cover. I don't want to like read every line of code here. That it's available on the GitHub repo. If you ever have any questions, you can write on the GitHub repo. You can ping me as well. But I think this is a really well done. Just to show you the three approaches. There's many other approaches that are out there. So if you're trying to learn prompting, I do encourage you to do that. Yeah, and then the overrides. Yeah, I covered that as well. So yeah, another thing we had was the chat turns. So within this model, and where are we? Basically, a turn is basically when the user essentially there's a prompt, then the user asks something. So we need to kind of couple those things. So we have this chat turn where we have the user, which is a string, and then a bot, which is optional. And we couple those things so that we can connect them into our history, which again is all connecting from our front end and back end code. All right. So I didn't. I feel sorry for people who asked many questions on these things, but let's see if I can get to any other questions before we end up. Did you see anything there? Does each model have all approaches?
Those.
Go ahead.
Do you want to say anything?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I mean, models, they are just base model, the foundation model, and how you want to use it. Yeah, it depends.
Yeah, so the model, the approaches aren't specific to the model. I would say the approaches are more specific to the use case that you want in your application or for your users to have. In this case, the user using the developer tools can choose an approach, but in a real world application, I don't think you probably want that level of configuration in your application. Cool. So I think that was we had a lot of questions on pricing, which I will link with you to see if we can get like some good.
Yeah, we will surely send you the link, but also I request you to just search Azure OpenAI pricing, and you can find the documentation on pricing in detail. So you have the different prices for different models, everything from GPT-3 models to Codex to So there's nicely explained on how the prices work and tokens and stuff. So there's document on that. It's publicly available.
All right. I had a slide, but this is gonna like ruin. I had like one final slide, but I can't even show it because of things going on. Let's see if I can get it up on the screen. No, that's not what I want. Okay. Well, lastly, and I wish I would have showed that, but on May 31st, we also have another session called Generative AI and Gaming. Basically, not your colleague Yashoda, but also a Nordic cloud solution architect named Henry has integrated ChatGPT into Stardew Valley, if you ever played that game. So we're going to look at that project, how he built it, what were the struggles, things like that, the code. We're always about looking and showing in the code here. So do check that out. I put it in the link. Let's see if my copy and paste still has that. Yeah. So that will be also there. But thank you, everyone, for joining the session. Like I always say, you could be anywhere on the internet right now, but you've chosen with us. Any final words, Yashoda, for the audience?
Yeah, great, Cora. Thank you so much for inviting me here and sharing my few 2 cents. But having said that, there is a learning path in Azure OpenAI.
Yeah, we've got that link, Yashoda. We've got that link.
You do? Okay, great. So I encourage our audience to have a look. It's very comprehensible. It's very basic. You can do. I mean, you can do that in some hours. So you will have all these your foundation basic knowledge checked if you take that learning path.
Perfect. That's a good ending. Take the learning path, and then come find us again. I don't know. We'll have to do this again. Perfect. Thanks, everyone.
Great. Thank you for having me. Thank you.